Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So you are at the end of year 3. So in the case of FEMA, that means that you can go for you finish your degree depending on your majors. Obviously, the only one to a certain extent who might not have finished completed their degree are the one who intends to major in banking and finance, because there is still the honors year. So therefore, I'm going to split a bit my talk about talking about the honors year of banking and finance, and then I will go for the masters that we propose in our department, the MSc Banking and Finance. So probably some of you might be asking yourself, should I just stop at year 3 and go for a master's, or just go into employment, or should I maybe do the honors year in banking and finance? So just to give you an idea, here, when you are going to where you are at this stage, the end of year 3, you completed 180 CTSs. Basically, on the major, you only completed, studied 60 CTSs. So year 1 was common, okay? So therefore, in year 1, you had no credits on your 2 majors. And then in year 2 and year 3, you had basically half of your semester on one of your majors and the other half on the other major. So given that each year is 60 CTSs, you did 30 CTSs on your major in year 2 and 30 in year 3. Now, if you go for the honors year, obviously in the honors year, there are no 2 majors, there is only 1 major. So therefore that full year will be fully dedicated to courses in banking and finance. And therefore, by the time that you finish your degree, you will have accumulated 240 CTSs, out of which 120, so the 60 that you would have done up to year 3, and then the additional 60 credits in the final year. So you'll have 120 ECTSs on your major, the one, in this case, banking and finance, the one in which you are specializing. So compared to a student who stops in year 3, you will have double the amount of credits compared to that student, okay? So therefore, you can say you will have double the expertise, okay? I would contend it might even be a bit higher, given that the courses in year 4 are of a higher level compared to the previous ones, and you are going a bit more into detail and so on, okay? So I explain this because obviously we are in what we call today in the knowledge society. You are service sector employees, and basically your employability, your skills and so on is what forms your human capital, and therefore essentially your experience, your expertise. And therefore, the more knowledge we have, the more expertise we have, the more valuable we are seen as an employer in terms of jobs prospects. So you see, my employers, when they come to me and ask me to circulate adverts with students, they never tell me, can you please circulate these with your 1-year students, with your 2-year students, but they come for your final year students, okay? And knowing in our case that our final year would be the 4-year students, okay? So I think at the end of the day, having more knowledge is an advantage, especially in the long term. Now, obviously, if you are thinking in terms of a master's, obviously the routes are 2 routes, yeah? So you finish at 3-year and you can go for what we now call a 1-year master's, although the ones offered locally by the other departments are not yet fully 1 year. So typically you will have 1 year taught courses, and then when you come back in September the following year, you will be working on the dissertation that you'll have to submit at some point, I think in January or February. So it's more like a 1.5 years. Now, obviously, if you go for the honors year in banking and finance, you'll have to wait 4 years to just complete the first degree, and then you will still need to go for the master's. So obviously, going for the master's will take you a bit longer, quite a number of years longer. I will tell you the details later on. But obviously, you'll have more knowledge, more expertise, and so on and so forth. Okay. So now, for those people who stop at year 3 and go directly for a master's, these are some of the comments that I hear at faculty board or when I talk with the other heads of department. So what are the problems that they are encountering with the students who stop in year 3 and go directly for a master's? Okay. So first of all, you have to be aware that when it comes to apply for a master's degree, not all universities, so here I'm talking not in Malta, yeah, so University of Malta will accept your 3-year degree. Obviously, you will have to look at the entry requirements and what degree they accept and so on. So it doesn't mean that maybe with your 3-year public policy, you will be able to get into a master's, I don't know, in financial services, for example, or a master's in banking and finance. Okay, definitely not. So you still have to look at the requirements. But here, what I'm referring to is something even more fundamental, is that, but this mainly applies to universities outside of Malta, in the sense that they will not recognize your 3-year degree. They will tell you, you don't have an undergraduate degree, because they will want to see an honors degree, and the BCom, the 3-year BCom, will not be acceptable. Okay, and this has to do, in a nutshell, because you might tell me why does it bother them? Okay, because in a lot of universities, they have 3-year degrees in the UK and so on. Yes, fair enough. But in our first year, given that our first year is not really university, but it is like a repeat of the A-level, so the first year is a bit lost. Okay, there, as I showed you earlier on, you don't have credits on your majors. Therefore, they will consider that in your 3 years you will not have completed enough credits in economics, in marketing and whatsoever, and therefore that's why they will want that honors year, and in order to fully recognize your degree. Anyway, so therefore that might be a problem. Obviously, if the university that I intend to apply to do my master's does not have these issues, then I am okay. What else? Okay. So these are more complaints of the head of the other heads of department vis-a-vis their current students. So the ones who stopped at year 3 and are applying for a master's in insurance, master's in marketing, and whatsoever. Okay, so the students are not mature or do not have enough knowledge to complete a master's. Okay, so the fact that, yes, they have less ECTSs, basically they cut the knowledge of 1 year, is proving to be a problem. Okay, but the bigger issue is now these 3-year degrees, you don't have to do a dissertation, and therefore you have no experience by the time you finish your first degree or undergrad in terms of doing some kind of dissertation, and you go for a master's where you're supposed to do a dissertation which is of a higher level compared to undergrad, because now this is master's, not anymore undergrad, and these students are having huge problems. Okay, besides also problems of they will want to extend their studies, because I will come to this, but most of them, these courses, you see, as I mentioned earlier on here, given that the model is the 1-year master's, so it's supposed to be a full-time master's, although, as I said, the first year you really just complete the taught courses and not you don't work on the dissertation, but it's supposed to be full-time, but all the students, and we know it, are working, okay, and therefore they are missing some lessons, maybe they're not 100% there, and therefore when it comes to do the work, then they have problems, they cannot cope, they have simply too much. Okay, so you see, I was coming to this question of, should I work and do my honors year at the same time, or if I go directly for a master, should I work and do the masters? Okay, so remember, for most courses, officially you are supposed to be a full-time student, therefore you shouldn't be doing anything else. Now we know that maybe you and probably everyone is working part-time, some form of part-time. Now it's one thing if you do 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, or some weeks I do 10 hours, but then close to the exams or close to certain periods, I reduce my commitment. But what I can observe is on average, students are always working more and more hours as the years go by, and they are working far too much. So typically 20 hours plus. I would say I'm almost convinced that most of them now work 20 hours plus. So, and the question is how much stuff can you do in 24 hours? Yeah, it's not, the human being is not made to work quasi full-time, study quasi full-time. You need to have a bit of entertainment, you need to have a relaxation time, you need time to complete the assignments and so on. And normally what I observe is whenever there is a conflict between work and the studies, the students give up on the studies. Okay, and I understand it. The employer might put a lot of pressure to keep you working. It's difficult to tell the employer no. Okay, and therefore you neglect the studies. Okay, so we are having a lot of problems and stories of students coming up with extensions, missing stuff, and so on. Okay, so therefore this is for you to solve. And my advice would be, okay, why not have some part-time, but you need to manage that and keep it within so that it doesn't disturb you in your studies. Okay, now coming to our masters in banking and finance. So here, assuming that you complete the honors year and now you go for the masters in banking and finance. So it's not possible, as you presumably understand, to stop at year 3 and then I go directly for the masters in banking and finance, because obviously, given that this is a direct continuation of the honors year, we assume and we want the people to have completed an honors year. Okay, obviously it would defeat the whole purpose if I start accepting the students at the end of year 3 to go into the masters directly. Okay, and probably it would be self-defeating because they wouldn't have the level in order to cope with the masters. Okay, so it is the current program is a 3-year part-time program. So it's a part-time evening course. So therefore, yes, you can combine it with work and work full-time. Okay, because the lectures are scheduled after 5:30. So basically the first 2 years, you have a series of taught study units. So like a bit like your undergrad, you have a number of courses to take, study units to complete, and you do that. And then the last year is dedicated fully to the dissertation. Okay, so basically in the last year, you don't have any taught lessons. You are just, your proposal gets accepted for the dissertation and you are appointed a tutor and you work exclusively with that tutor. Okay, so therefore, if we could say if our some of the masters are what they call 1 year, and as I told you, after the first 1 year of taught courses, you have then in the following September till February to complete your dissertation. This is a bit the same. You have really 2 years of taught program and then the rest to complete your dissertation. So our masters mostly, and I say mostly as I speak, was taught with foreign professors. Okay, so mainly professors coming from the UK. We had one professor, actually he's Maltese, but he teaches in the USA, who used to come. And typically they would come on to deliver their study unit on a 1 week visit, 1 week intensive. So you'd have every day for a whole week, and they would have 2 visits per study unit. Okay. Now I put will probably change. It's still a bit of a question mark because obviously with COVID, there were travel restrictions, there were issues, there are issues of costs as well, and so on. So whether they will still make 2 visits, whether it will still be all foreign professors, whether it will be maybe 1 visit and 1 online or everything online, is still need to be a bit determined. the course need a minimum of students in order to open. So we need approximately to have around 10 to 15 participants for finance to allow us to open the course. Okay. Just to give you an idea, last year we didn't have enough applicants, so we were not in a position to open the course. Okay, so therefore, here, if some people are intend to apply or are interested to apply, they need to do it quite early so that we know whether we will have enough applicants to open the course or not. I don't remember exactly the cost per semester. I think it's around 2,000 euros something, but for this you need to consult the website of the university. But I know that this is part of the Malta enterprise, one of the Malta enterprise schemes, the get refund back, and so on. Okay, so it's one of the eligible courses. So basically, when it comes to the course fees, you can get part of it back then through by applying through one of the Malta enterprise schemes. Okay, obviously this is subject to the scheme being reconducted and so on and so forth. So the university has nothing to do with it. It's entirely administered by Malta enterprise and so on. Okay, the idea, therefore, or the philosophy of our masters, which, as you notice, is a bit different from maybe the other departments, which are going for this 1 year plus model, full-time masters model. Okay, although, as we say, the students are maybe not attending full-time and so on, which, as I mentioned earlier on, creates some issues. But the model that we are trying to follow is we'd rather have less students, but students of better quality, because ultimately, you see, with your degree, you are going to go into industry. And if your degree is not of good quality, so the students are not of good quality, basically employers will not be so much anymore attracted by the graduates. And therefore, we have preferred privileging quality so that we keep the reputation of the course and we keep employers interested in our degree. I know that a number of students after the masters, they got an upgrade in their jobs or they changed jobs, and they got quite a number of those got paid in the region of 60,000 euros, probably now even maybe some even more. Okay, so therefore it's really, you really get access to very high quality, good jobs in the industry. But as you notice, quality is a question of time. How many study units you complete, the more you complete, the more expertise you will have, and the difficulty of the course, because it will be intrinsically a bit more selective, and therefore, even given that the selection is a bit tougher, you'll have students of better quality, and therefore the professors will be able to go a bit deeper into the topic and provide higher levels of expertise. Okay, so definitely, if you had to look at our course, it is definitely on the quality, higher quality side. Probably maybe the most difficult that is offered in the whole faculty, even much more difficult than the MBA and whatsoever. So it's a bit more difficult, it's a bit longer. So I recognize it's not maybe for everyone, not everyone has the ambition to go for the most difficult course, and maybe a longer course, but you know where you stand. Okay, so at the end of the day, after a while, employers will get to in contact with people coming from different masters, and they will notice what is the average quality of the students coming from each one of those courses, and therefore they will know eventually how to rank and which are the most attractive graduates. So having said that, knowing that employers will need a range of employees, so they don't need all ultra qualified, ultra smart students. They need a bit of those, but they also need people who are a bit more average to maybe compute other tasks and so on. Okay, so therefore, kind of this is, I think, what I had to say from my side. Now I don't know if there are any questions. Okay, so results will probably come out next week we have the external examiners coming in. So normally when the external examiners are here, we definitely need to finalize all the results. So they will be finalized, all the results. They will be approved by the end of next week. And then probably it's just a question of the admin people, how long they take to press the few buttons and on the computer to make them available to the students. But as far as I know, normally, if they are not available, so not this Friday, but the following Friday, I think the following Monday, they should be available. But the admin people will know a bit more about that, because you see, at our stage, once we approve them, the academics and so on, it's in the hands of the admin people to make them visible to the students. It's not me who presses these buttons and so on. So that's one thing. And then normally, I think the application for the honors are issued shortly after. But what I'll do, I will check and I will post a note on the VLE. Once I will know a bit about the dates, but normally this is how it should work. Okay, so by sometime by the end of next week or early following week. Okay, anything else?
If there are any more questions, you can email them to us and we'll pass them on to you, Dr. Sivan.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I would like to thank you very much once again for joining and for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, thank you.
And you've just finished your third year now, your Bachelor of Commerce third year. And now you will be moving forward to the Masters, okay? If you did well in your exams. The exam results should be out soon. And then come October, you will start off the first year of the Masters. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the course, the master's course, the subjects that you will be covering, and I'm going to talk a bit about the dissertation process, because as you know, the dissertation process is a very important element of the master's course. In fact, to put things into perspective, the dissertation carries 30 credits. And as you well know, every year you cover 60 credits. The dissertation carries 30 credits. So in the second year of the master's, the dissertation is half the credits for that year. So just to remind you, what is the mission of our department? Our mission is to develop professional accountants to lead high-performing businesses. So our aim here is for you to develop into accountants who will work in the industry, in the public sector, within government, in our PIEs, public interest entities, so insurance companies, banks, public limited companies, listed companies, etc. So we need to develop quality accountants who will be able to rise to the challenges that present themselves whilst you are on the job. So here what we intend to do and what we've been trying to do during the past 3 years is to give you the tools for you to be able to adapt to the work environment in which you will be working in. And sometimes I get students who ask, but why do we cover so much theory? Or why isn't the course more practical? Why don't we have more hands-on work experience? And the answer is very simple here. Remember, as I shall discuss shortly, that we can, our opportunities when we have graduated as accountants and obtained our warrants, our opportunities are various and varied, which means that you could have an accountant working in an audit firm and an accountant working in a pharmaceutical company or in a bank. Sorry. or an accountant working in a bank. We give you the tools for you to be able to adapt, whether you are working in a bank, in an insurance company, in an audit firm, etc., etc. So you need the theoretical background, and we give you also some soft skills, communication skills, presentation skills, etc., so that when you have been in your employment 6 months or a year, you will then be able to gain that experience, and then you can hit the ground running. So, as you know, the accountancy course is divided into the 3 years that you have just covered, and you also specialized in another area other than accountancy. And now, as I said, you are moving on to the master's. Okay, so this is the course content overview. I'm not going to talk about the first 3 years because obviously you know well what subjects you have covered. I'm going to talk about the 4th year and 5th year. So financial accounting and reporting, we are studying accounts, so obviously it's going to feature in the master's course. Cost and management accounting, and you will study this subject in your 4th year, as auditing as well. Now, financial management or corporate finance, you will study it both in the 4th year and the 5th year. Taxation in the 4th year. Some elements of law in the 4th year. In the 5th year, there are a number of subjects, we call them electives, and you can choose some of them or one of them. We have forensic accounting, international accounting, international tax, and you will cover that study unit in your 2nd year of the master's. The dissertation I will talk about shortly. There are some other study units, such as contemporary issues. So contemporary issues, we cover subjects which are current or topical or hot subjects in the profession. And this contemporary issues will then close off with a case study. So in the 5th year, once when you are closing off the dissertation, you will be following the contemporary issue study unit. And as an assessment, you will be given a case study and an assignment. Now, the case study is usually a practical case study, which, and then you will be examined in 3 areas, for example, auditing, corporate governance, and management accounting. We change every year. So every year it's going to be different, but that is practical, and it tries, the purpose of that study unit is it tries to bring together a number of subjects that you would have studied during your course. So contemporary issues, research issues, you're going to cover a subject which will help you with the dissertation, like for example, how to carry out the research methodology, referencing, etc., etc. Business ethics and corporate governance and risk management. And basically that is it. Now, as regards the dissertation, as I told you, the dissertation is a very important element of our course. I will talk about it shortly. Before that, I invite you to go to this link. If you don't have this link, you can, in Google, you can write Master in Accountancy, University of Malta. And once you go to this link, you will have an overview of the master's course program description and for your perusal, because you might want to go into each link. So for example, advanced audit and assurance, this is covered in year 1 of the master's. It carries 15 ASCS. And if you want to look into detail as to what subjects you will be covering, who will be lecturing this study unit, and how will it be assessed, all you have to do is follow the link. It will take you to the page where you have more detail, and you also have the texts or supplementary readings, the learning outcomes, what you will be covering. So assessment, for example, you have a seminar paper, 10% weighting, and 2 exams of 2 hours each. And here you have the lecturers involved. So for every study unit, you can look into detail what that study unit includes. So advanced audit and assurance, financial reporting, taxation, the subjects I have mentioned in the course overview. Management accounting 1, corporate and financial services law, research issues. This is the subject where the lecturer will explain better and will help you with the dissertation. Semester 2, corporate finance, financial management, management accounting 2, and then in year 2, obviously, you have the dissertation, 30 credits, and semester 1 subjects, the electives, okay? And semester 2, in year 2, you only have the contemporary issues. This is the subject where I told you that you have to compile. Let's go to the assessment here. So here you have an assignment, 40% weighting, and a case study. And as I told you, the subject includes a number of lecturers. Each lecturer is a specialist in different areas. So it is a very interesting subject which tries to touch upon current issues in the profession. So basically, this is the program description. Now, the dissertation. I'm going to spend some time talking about the dissertation process because it is a very important process which is going to take a lot of effort, but it's going to be also rewarding. Why? Because hopefully you're going to choose a subject that you like, and you are going to study that subject, to research that subject in detail. So the dissertation process starts in the first semester, okay, of year 1 masters. And the dissertation process is kicked off through the study unit. So you've got the study unit, research issues in accountancy, and its aim is to guide you, for the different lecturers involved, to guide you on what you should be achieving in your dissertation and on how to prepare a dissertation proposal. So the first step is for you to choose a subject and prepare a dissertation proposal. But before that, we have the study unit in semester 1, and during the study unit, lecturers will guide you accordingly. So in the study unit, as I told you, you have a number of sessions with different lecturers, and each lecturer specializes in a different accounting area. So we've got lecturers specializing in audit, in taxation, in the public sector, internal auditing, etc., etc. And then obviously you would have done some reading, and you can ask questions accordingly. One good idea would be to go through academic journals, see what topics have been studied, try to identify a gap in the literature, whereby then you can add your own research. Okay, then during semester 1, you will also be expected to discuss the dissertation topic that you are proposing to work upon with members of the academic staff. So usually the students will contact the head of department, which is obviously myself, and then I will try to guide you. So if you tell me, listen, I am interested in vet or in company law, and my idea is to, obviously you have to do your homework, you have to try to identify what you're trying to achieve with the dissertation, the objectives, and then if you come to me and you tell me, listen, I want to research an area, this particular area in taxation. I will guide you accordingly and send you to the lecturer or to the academic who is specialized in that area, such that then you can start meeting up with this person, with this academic, and he will guide you, he will give you some hints. For example, he might tell you, listen, this objective is not so feasible, why don't you try to do this? And you start moving on. So the first step is you contact me and I will try to guide you accordingly. I will also give you a number, because obviously the topics are on a first come, first served basis. So if I have, I don't know, Mr. X coming with a topic on vet and Mr. Y coming with the same topic a week later, I will obviously tell Mr. Y that that topic has already been taken up, okay? But we will guide you later on, and you will have also available the list of dissertations that have been compiled in the past 10 years. So you can see the topics that have been already explored, and if sufficient time has passed, usually if five years have passed from a particular research, we might suggest that the topic can be studied again, because you can carry out an update, obviously, and then you give it your touch, or maybe include another objective, etc., etc. The dissertation proposal is submitted then in semester 2 of the first year, obviously, by mid-March. And the dissertation proposal will also serve as your assessment for this study unit. So the assessment for the research issues in accountancy study unit will be the compilation of your dissertation proposal. And then obviously we mark the dissertation proposal and we'll give you a mark accordingly for this study unit. The proposals will then be vetted by the dissertation board, composed of the head of department and 2 other academics. And if approved, we will then allocate a dissertation supervisor to each student. And then the dissertation process, the dissertation supervision, and the writing up of the dissertation starts a year from now. So after you finish the exams of your 4th year, you start thinking about the dissertation. For example, in my case, I am supervising a number of students who will be in their 5th year next year. I have already met up with them and started guiding them for them to start working during the summer before they start off the 5th year. So as soon as you finish your exams in the 4th year, you will start meeting up with your supervisor such that he or she will guide you accordingly. By the beginning of semester 1 of the 2nd year, okay, here we are talking about Master in Accountancy Year 2. You are expected to have drafted your introduction and your literature review. So at the end of September, you will submit your introduction and literature review to your supervisor. And then by mid-October or the end of October, you will have prepared your interview questions or your questionnaires, depending on how you're going to gather your data. And you will also submit your application form to the Research Ethics Committee of the university. We will guide you accordingly. Obviously, you will have meeting with myself and with Dr. Franz de Bono, and we will guide you accordingly during this whole process. Once you have the approval from the Ethics Committee, you can start collecting the data. So carrying out interviews, setting appointments, sending out questionnaires, collating the data. I also advise you next summer, if you're going to go for quantitative analysis, which means carrying out a survey and then doing statistical analysis on the results that you gather, I also advise you to attend a course at the university in summer with Professor Liberato Camilleri on SPSS. Okay, this is a statistical software. Data collection should be completed before you sit for the exams of semester 1. So by December, you should have completed your interviews or questionnaires. And then once you start semester 2, you will complete the most challenging part of the dissertation, which is writing up your findings and your discussion. The dissertation will then be submitted in the first week of May in year 2. Okay? So before I move on to the next slide, is there anything you would like to ask vis-a-vis the dissertation or the course content or anything else for that matter? Okay, shall I move on? Okay. So, what I'm going to say now you are already aware of, but I just want to highlight some things. As you know, the Department of Accountancy is the largest department in our faculty, and it is composed of around 60 lecturers. We've got 10 academics, and we've got 50 visiting lecturers from the profession and the industry. Now, here, what I would like to highlight is the importance of you making the most of this opportunity. So you are studying at university, please make time, ensure that you attend the lectures. We've had situations last year where people do not attend the lectures. I mean, you are full-time students. You will have time to work in the future. You will have your whole life to work. So try to make the most of it now. Try to enjoy university life as much as possible, obviously, because you have to study. But it's also important for you to build networks. Some of the colleagues that you are sitting next to in the lectures will be your future colleagues at the place of work. So even if you want to contact someone, you need to ask something, some advice, or perhaps regarding taxation or something else, you might know someone who was in your course, and it would be a good network which will help you in your work. So my point is, let us try. Now, hopefully we go back to normal, no online sessions. We meet in the lecture room. Let us try to make the most of it. I'm not telling you do not work, especially in summer. It's good for you to gain some experience. But if you decide to work during the winter period, during the academic year, at least limit the work to 2 afternoons or 2 days, not more, especially when you are writing up the dissertation. We had a lot of problems, a lot of low marks this year in the dissertation, and we found that with COVID, given the online delivery of most of the lectures, people took advantage of that and started working full-time. I'm sorry, but it does not work. You are attending university, you are full-time students. This is my advice. I mean, I would give this advice to my children. So what I want for them, I wish for you. I want you to make the most of it. You've got a mix of academics and practitioners attending university. Attend the lectures, ask them questions, discuss with them, engage in conversations, get their advice as to what you should be doing in your career, what is the best course of action, whether you should specialize in an area or in another. Okay, try to make the most of it. That's why we have a mix of academics and people from the profession and the industry for you to make the most of it. Having said that, our academics, the full-time academics, also have experience in the field. So, for example, in my case, I have worked with an audit firm in the advisory department for 17 years. So I know what it's like to work in the profession. I sit on boards, I know what it's like in the public sector, in companies, etc., etc. So if you have any difficulties, we are open, our door is always open, and we are open for you to come and discuss them with us. I'm going to take the opportunity to mention something which, to be honest, is irritating both for myself and for the other heads of department with whom I have spoken in the last couple of days and who have held these talks gently organized by ASCS. And we are really, really disappointed, not just myself, I've had WhatsApp messages from the other heads as well, with the poor attendance. I mean, why do we have just 15 attendees here? Is it not your future we're talking about? Why is this? I'm not talking about you because you are the students who have attended. So I'm just saying this for you to pass on the message to the others. And it is very disappointing for us. I mean, to prepare a presentation, attend, and then find a handful of students. So obviously, this is not addressed to you, but I want you, especially ASCS, to pass on this message across. And even when you come to my department and to the other departments with some complaints, obviously we are open to listen to complaints, to take constructive criticism, to improve, to always improve, but the students have to do their share. I mean, why are some students complaining because an exam was difficult when in the first place they did not attend the lectures? Obviously, you're going to find it difficult. I had a case this year. A student told me, I'm not going to finish the dissertation. I told her, let's set up a meeting. I met up with the student and I realized this was before Easter. So she had 1 month to submit it. I realized that she was working full-time from Monday to Friday from 8 to 5. How on earth are you going to write up a 20,000 word dissertation and spend the required time researching and trying to come up with something which makes sense when you are working full-time and you are working on the dissertation in the weekends only? It's impossible. So what I'm telling you is from experience. Please, I appreciate that you made time, you attended today, and I'm sure that you are dedicated students. Please focus on your work and on your studies, and then work in a limited way. So basically what I have on the slide, I've already covered. Okay. A few words about the warrant. I'm sure you are aware of this. You know that once you graduate, you have to work an aggregate period of 3 years in the practice of accountancy in order for you to obtain the warrant, the Certified Public Accountant Warrant, okay, the CPA. At least 1 year has to be worked after you graduate. So if you work in summer, that work will count towards the warrant, but only up to a maximum of 2 years, because 1 year has to be 1 year experience has to be gained after you graduate. Now, when I say in the practice of accountancy, I mean in the practice of accountancy. So if you are just doing the filing, or I don't know, at the place of work, but working on your assignments or on your thesis, that doesn't count, okay? The work has to be in the practice of accountancy. And as you might know, the warrant is issued by the Minister for Finance on the advice of the Accountancy Board. Job opportunities are fantastic. So I encourage you to work hard during the coming 2 years to also enjoy university life, because at the end of this long road, at the end of this journey, the rewards are really, really good. So you can work in various jobs in various industries. Within an accounting firm, if you're working within an accounting firm, you can choose a different areas: accounting, auditing, taxation, advisory. You can work as an accountant or a CFO or a financial controller within the various companies across the industry. So in a pharmaceutical company, in a manufacturing company, gaming, etc., etc. We have the financial service industry, you know, it's very lucrative in Malta. So you can work within banks, within insurance companies, with the regulators, MFSA, the Gaming Authority, the Central Bank of Malta. There are loads and loads of opportunities. May I remind you that at the moment we have a big deficit in our profession, a deficit of accountants. So if you work hard, if you obtain good results, I'm sure you will be a success. And then there are jobs within the public sector, within the government ministries and departments. The government is all the time looking for prospective students within the tax compliance and within a lot of public corporations. Remember that the job flexibility is our job, the accountancy jobs offer flexibility, such as, for example, teleworking. So we have seen this during the pandemic, whereby our jobs were not interrupted at all. We were able to hold meetings, we were able to continue lecturing, we were able to guide students in their dissertation. We worked, in my experience, I think, we worked more than we had been working before the pandemic. Why? Because we had nowhere to go, no place to be, and we were stuck inside in front of a computer. So my point here is that the jobs offer a lot of flexibility. So they are good even if you have a family in the future. You can balance, you can work from home, and you can hopefully achieve a good work-life balance as well. These are the teaching and research staff. Okay, I'm sure you have met most of them. These are the 10 academic staff that I mentioned earlier. But then apart from these, we have the other 50 part-timers. And as you know, any administrative problems, any administrative issues, you contact Paula or Romina accordingly. Now, I can take some questions if you have any questions.
I have a question regarding the warrant. So for the 2 years, like before, sort of before we graduate, how would we know sort of if the work that we're doing contributes to those years?
Obviously, when you are going to apply for the warrant, you will have to submit to the accountancy board what you have been working on, timesheets. You know what timesheets are? Yes, you will submit timesheets to them and they will vet them accordingly. Just as a guidance, if you're working, for example, actually, you know what, in the practice of accountancy, so if you are in an audit firm in the accounting department and you are helping compiling financial statements for the client, that counts. If you are in the taxation department and you are helping with tax returns or tax advice, compliance, that counts. If you are working in an auditing environment and you are carrying substantive testing or control testing at a client, that counts. Okay, if you are working in a manufacturing company and you are working close to the financial controller, helping him with the payroll and with other accounting tasks, that counts as well. What doesn't count is, for example, if you are filing, referencing working papers, I mean.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question regarding entry for requirements to qualify for the Masters in Accounts. There's about the 65% minimum average in the second and third year study unit of accountancy. Does that mean you have to get 65% minimum in each, or just an average overall?
An average, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
average overall.
So it's not an every study unit of accounts?
No, on average.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Alol, and rest assured that we will pass on your message to the students regarding
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot, and good luck, everyone. Enjoy summer now, so that when we come back, we are geared to start off the masters. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So I thought I would go through some issues with choosing economics. One moment, please, because when we start to record, then it doesn't like to move through the functions. Very good. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this talk, and feel free to interrupt at any point, is first I'm going to give you an overview of the whole sector that we're operating in, some career options, the kind of skills and aptitudes you need to follow economics, some information on the progression, economics at the University of Malta, that's the Department of Economics, some testimonials, and then a little focus on careers in the green economy, because that's my specialization. So why should you choose economics? And these are just some reasons that I came up with, and you know that even in discussing with the department, we think are useful insights that economics gives you. It helps you to understand the world. It's not the only worldview, but it's a very useful worldview. And it's a bridge to many fields. So, you know, if you're interested in health, you can do the economics of health. If you're interested in environmental issues, the economics of the environment, and so forth. So if you're a person like me who has a lot of interests, economics is a very good toolkit to access many of those interests. It's also a prestigious social science, so it's a very rigorous social science. It's nice to be the economist on the team. It will get you a good job. I say that because from the experience of all our alumni, you know, in fact, their problem was which job to choose. It is true that Malta right now, there is labor shortage, so you can probably get a good job even if you don't study at all. But you know, it's one of those fields which really you're in demand. It's shaping the world. Many of the biggest issues right now are economic issues. So, as you know from first year economics, the economy is the sum total of all decisions taken on what we consume, what we produce, and government policy. It's the value of everything, basically, or somehow trying to understand the value of everything. So there can be no bigger palette through which to, you know, understand the world. Many of you will know this already, but economics as a field, and therefore our way of looking at the economy, splits up into multiple areas and multiple methods. So it's very difficult to be bored or not to find your field in economics, because you can specialize in any of these areas, and you can choose to specialize in any of these areas in your dissertation. By way of careers, I split it up into this way. First of all, you can get a career in the public sector. This is the most obvious place to get a career, because you would be basically regulating markets in some way, or fixing where markets fail. Or you could be in the monetary area, like at the central bank, or in economic policy, where they deal with several issues like fiscal matters and government debt, or in competition, like at the MCCAA, or even in many sectoral public sector agencies, like the Energy and Water Agency employs economists, ERA, the Environment Resources Authority employs economists, and so forth. Similarly, you could be in the private sector, where you could work in consultancy to service the public sector typically, or to service international organizations, but also in the private sector in fields which have nothing to do with regulating the market, but which are a market field in themselves, like gaming or banking. There is demand for economists with NGOs, with the voluntary sector, foundations, bodies, associations. For example, we have students who were employed with the Chamber of Commerce. Then there are a plethora of jobs with international bodies. The European Union employs a bunch of economists, the United Nations, the OECD, the IMF. You can also teach, for example, in my case, after a career in the public sector and also several years of consultancy, I'm now teaching. And you can also be in the media as journalists. This is a really important toolkit that you could, in fact, I really feel that journalism in Malta needs to have a few more economists in order to understand and critically write articles of an economic nature. To do economics, you need to be skilled in writing. It's not just mathematics, it's also writing. In fact, the vast majority of what we communicate in writing. But you also need to be good with numbers. You need to like research, because if you're especially thinking of choosing economics at a master's level, there's a whole semester dedicated to research. And thereafter, that's what mostly you'll be doing. You need to be able to analyze and synthesize complex information. You need to enjoy lateral thinking. Remember that as economists, we're always thinking of the unintended consequences, that everything has an effect, but then has another effect. We don't say, for example, even simply when we look at the size of a sector, we don't just look at its percentage in the pie chart of the Maltese economy. We also look at its multiplier effect. We then look at its externalities. So we're critical thinkers as economists. We make a bunch of forecasts as economists. We like to model things. We are methodical and responsible in the use of data. We don't stop at face value when we look at data. We don't just look at averages. We don't just look at correlations. We try to identify causality. We try to simplify complex information. If you like to travel, this is a good area to be employed in, because there's often, for example, if you're negotiating with the European Union, or if you're in a multilateral organization, or even in an NGO, if you're with the APD, if you were with NSO, I forgot to mention them, there's likely to be travel to meet your counterparts at the European Union level. But mostly I chose economics myself because I cared a lot about wanting to make the world a better place. And I felt that economics gave me a really solid toolkit to do that. Also because many of the problems that make the world not such a good place are economic problems. I made here a selection of some of the economists I think contributed to understanding the world and to making it a better place, starting with Adam Smith, who somehow realized that without governments doing anything, the scarce resources of the world will find their way to whoever wants them most. John Stuart Mill and his wife, who looked at utilitarianism and sort of the notion that people want to have the maximum happiness and good and the minimum suffering, and somehow conveyed that in economics and utility functions. Keynes, who looked at how governments should intervene and when, and how government spending can solve some problems. And Pigou, who is my hero because he invented the Pigouvian tax, which is basically the polluter pays principle, that we should tax people who harm others by their environmental pollution. And then some more modern economists like Joseph Stiglitz, who is everywhere, and he focuses on market imperfections, chief economist, World Bank, big guy. You really should know who Joseph Stiglitz is. Elinor Ostrom, who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize for economics, and she focused on how it is possible to take care and nurture natural resources like lakes and forests, and to do so even without government intervention if the community conditions are right, and she focused on such community conditions. Then we have Esther and her partner Banerjee, who won the Nobel Prize, and they work a lot on fighting global poverty, even through behavioral economics. And Kate Raworth, who recently came up with the notion of donut economy and how to manage the economy and look after the boundaries of the planet. And Thaler, who's won also a Nobel Prize for behavioral economics and came up with a new toolkit in economics of how to influence people without taxation or regulation, but just by making it easier for them to do the right thing, the concept of the behavioral nudge. So these are top economists that are really shaping the field or have shaped the field. Now let's look at you and how you can get there from where you stand. So you probably have already now become with economics major, from what I could see from the participants in the room. And from there, you're wondering whether you should go on to MSc economics. We removed the option of BA honors economics, and now people can progress directly to the MSc. And for that, you only need to achieve a second lower. So if you achieve a second lower, you're qualified. And if you have a major in economics, of course, you might need to take some supplementary studies if you're weak or if you need to, but you're going to be accepted into the MSc. With regard to then progressing on to a PhD, the master's opens the door for you to do that. What can you do with your qualifications? Well, even with an A-level, you can already start to think of jobs in the public, private, or voluntary sector where there is a flavor of economics. Of course, with BCom, you'll be more qualified to do that. And with an MSc, you've got a much better license to lead and to enter these organizations even at a better pay structure. With a PhD in economics, what you're looking for is mainly an academic job. Of course, there are jobs that will welcome a PhD, but it is by no means common that you would need a PhD to enter the private, public, or voluntary sector, unless you're entering a research organization, which is not the university. Would you like to ask me any questions until now? I'm just reversing to see if there's anything that...
I have a question with regards to the PhD. How long would it typically take for one to do a PhD?
3.5 years,
3.5.
full-time, and about 6 years part-time.
Okay, thank you.
If there is no one else, I'll continue and then we can have more questions at the end. Okay. So when you're thinking of doing a master's, one of the first things you will think about, as I said also to the students who came to the briefing session, one of the first things you will think about is the dissertation. And we ask you to start thinking about that in the summer before you start your master's, because as soon as you land into the master's, you do a research methods course with me, whereby we practice all that we learn on your possible dissertation topic. So we get you basically on the ground running with your dissertation. It's true that you have, a lot of time in summer to focus on it, but we like to ensure that by, say, December, you've done your literature review. By February, you've started or even concluded the data collection. Then you stop. It's like you let your data simmer a little bit. And then after your exams, which would be at about this time, you get hold of your dissertation again to really write it up, essentially. So in choosing your topic, first of all, you must think of what your goal is. Why are you doing a dissertation? So you're doing a dissertation. Actually, let me ask you this. Why do you think we do a dissertation? Anybody? Let me ask Janica. Why do you think we do a dissertation? What's its purpose?
To do research.
Yes, so you're learning how to do research. Any other ideas? Luca. If you're still here, Luca.
Yes, maybe so you focus on a topic, particular topic, and you have more knowledge about a topic that you are interested in.
Yes, so it's a kind of specialization. But mostly we're doing the dissertation in order to get a master's degree and in order to get the ACTSs that are due with it. Okay, so with that in mind, which is a little bit of a cynical perspective, right? But with that in mind, you really want to choose the dissertation topic that will act as the vehicle for you to get this degree. In other words, we don't want you dying in the ditch of some really difficult topic that you don't like. We want you to do a dissertation that feels like you're enjoying it. A moment. Look, every time I touch some other part of, just give me a minute, please. Not. About this. There again. Okay, so in order to zoom in on a dissertation topic of your preference, I would suggest that you ask yourself, what are you most capable of doing? Is your forte mathematics? Is it empirical work like data and econometrics? Or is it the written word? It is also possible to do a dissertation in economics without econometrics. It's rare, it's not the norm, but there are people who do it, and there are people who have done it, who have obtained such a high mark that they got the best dissertation of the year. So it's possible to do a written dissertation. It's possible to do a dissertation that is mainly mathematical. The bulk of dissertations are typically some empirical analysis. In other words, you get some theory, and then you collect the data to test that theory. So after you've sort of zoomed in on what you are capable of, it's good to think most importantly of what interests you. And I refer you back to those fields that I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to give you a whole list of topics for inspiration now as well. Also, you want to ask yourself, who do I wish to work with? So you've been lectured by all of us, and you might have really enjoyed, for example, Daniel Gravino's lectures, or Ian Kassar, or whoever, you know, Prof. Tom Proctor, for Dr. Charmaine, whoever. And you say, you know, I was really inspired by this person. I would really like to do a dissertation with this person, because ultimately we are the ones who are going to supervise you. Then you want to ask yourself whether data exists for the topic that you're interested in. So in scouting for materials, one of the first things you're going to scout for is a data set. Where it doesn't exist, you might need to create one. And you can create both through experiment or through survey or other means, which you will learn with me. And then you want to find out where your research topic is positioned. It's very unlikely at master's level that you will do anything groundbreaking. So you will likely find a paper that you liked, that you enjoyed reading, and say, I'm going to do like this, but a little bit different, okay? And that's how you will contribute. So all of this will be covered in the first week of the first semester of the master's. I'm just giving you a flavor so that you understand, as many of you have not done a dissertation, how this will start. And look here, what a big range of topics we have, of topics which students did in the past, or which maybe they thought of doing but didn't do, but mostly they are actual dissertations in the economic department. I'll read some out for you. What stimulates altruistic behavior? How large is the underground economy? How can you stimulate the film industry in Malta? What are the costs and benefits of road widening? Should Malta reclaim land? What is the role of price in the management of the Blue Lagoon? What are the economic impacts of refugees in Malta? Obesity and how it affects, and who is obese in Malta by socioeconomic determinants? Unhealthy living and work absenteeism, the cost effectiveness of mammograms, the economic effects of divorce. Is there a property bubble? Is government debt sustainable? Does money make people happy? So really, you can already start to see just how vast. The effect of the Made in Malta label on willingness to pay, wage distribution, monetary policy measures, the Malta Development Bank and its design, demographic change and economic growth, growth in Caribbean small island states, so it doesn't have to be about Malta, the impact of culture on well-being, taxing traffic, free public transport, the efficiency cost of market power and banking, informal care of the elderly, and it goes on and on. Many, many topics: social, environmental, monetary, real estate, transport, demography. And we really encourage you to go for a topic that excites you. Now, turning to the course itself, you are aware of what the BCom looks like because you're in it. So for those of you going into third year, what you'll be faced with is these compulsory units, which are monetary economics, applied micro and macro economics, international economics, econometrics, the economics of environmental policy, applied research tools for business, and economic research methods. And then there are elective and optional units like economics of development and small island states, development economics, international finance, monetary policy. I need to check if these have been updated, but I believe this is the latest that we have. In any case, you're on that trajectory now already, so you're not getting out of that. So it's more the masters which interests you. So with regard to the masters, as I said, there are 3 semesters. In the first semester, you will do advanced econometrics, which you will continue to do also in semester 2. So it's basically 2 semesters long. in the first semester, you've got the standard issues like advanced microeconomics, advanced macroeconomics, applied mathematics for micro and macro, and economic research in theory and practice. Now, these last two, the mathematics and the economic research methods, you will do them during October. So you get those, it's very tough because it's like a crash course for both. But once you get them out of the way, then you start to focus on the other three topics. At this time also, you invest some time in your dissertation. So you think of the topic, start your literature review, you put in your ethics form, so you get that kind of chunk out of the way. In semester 2, you not only continue with advanced econometrics, but you also do environmental and resources economics, monetary policy and the financial system, economics of aging populations, behavioral and experimental economics, economics of labor market and human potential, and the global economy. So as you can see, it's quite a varied list of topics. Many of these were previously in the honors. Students used to find the honors very exciting because they were touching all these topics. With behavioral and experimental economics, it's also a crash course, and you get to do a real life experiment for your assessment. Now, who are we in the department? So this is the department. As you can see, if you come to the department for no other reason, you should come because we're all so good looking and you'll be surrounded by superstars. So this is us. And here you have a little bit about all of us. So Carl specializes in health economics and aging and pensions. You can see all of this on our profile pages, okay? What we teach and what we specialize in, and our publications. Rosa Zoppardi deals with labor, migration, gender, global. Prof. Bonnici, monetary and macro, generally speaking. Myself, environmental and behavioral. Dr. Ian Kassar is mainly macro. He's also specializing in input-output issues, but he basically takes macro. And in fact, in contrast, only deal with micro. And Daniel Gravino, he is doing both econometrics and micro, but he has a special interest also in industry, in housing, and so forth. And Charmaine is the monetary economist, so she deals mainly with monetary and finance. Prof. Philip Brogdorf is the person to go to if you're doing cost-benefit analysis. He's also very interested in aging and transport economics. We all do a bit of everything, so when it comes to distributing the dissertations, it's also a matter, for example, if I end up with 15 subjects, then I will choose the ones that nobody else can do, and the others get distributed. Some student testimonials. Here we have Glenn, who's currently my research support officer. He writes, I selected economics as my major to learn more about how humans behave and interact in the real world. While the program did not fall short of these expectations, it went a step further. The Department of Economics offers a diverse mix of modules in a variety of economic areas of specialization, backed by well-rounded academic staff. I found the environment to be open and welcoming to intellectual freedom, which nudged me into discovering my passion for behavioral economics. The strong foundation I received from the department equipped me with the necessary skills to distinguish myself in an MSc in behavioral science at the London School of Economics. I can firmly recommend the undergraduate program to anyone determined to develop a free and analytical mindset that looks for answers to big questions. And this is Gilmore, who's currently doing a PhD in the department. He graduated in economics in 2012. He started working as an economics officer at the Economic Policy Department. After 2 years, he won a scholarship to read for a master's, which he did at the University of Nottingham. Then last year, he received a scholarship to pursue doctoral studies in economics at the University of Malta. And meanwhile, he's been promoted to chief economist at the Malta Fiscal Advisory Council. I won't take too much of your time on this. I was asked to do it for the fair coming next week, but anyway, green economics is a very, very fast growing field. I'll skip the description of what green economics is. But there is now a lot of emphasis. Kate Raworth, I mentioned her earlier with her donut economics, says our future economy will thrive on reusing, repairing, refurbishing, remaking, and repurposing. This transformation will create new kinds of creative and purposeful jobs. And you can search for these search terms for all sorts of jobs related to the green economy. And the ILO says green jobs reduce the consumption, defines green jobs as those which reduce the consumption of energy and raw materials, limit greenhouse gases, minimize waste and pollution, and so forth. And there are plenty of areas where you can be employed in the green job sector. If you look at Google Trends, you will see that circular economy jobs are, or interest in circular economy jobs on the increase, and so forth, similarly with sustainability jobs. And then I thought I would end this presentation by giving you a quick look at my own career, just to see how varied a career in economics can be. I just spent 1 minute on this or so. So I actually started with a passion for the English language. I loved to write, I still love to write, but concurrently, out of interest and more curiosity, I chose economics as my level. At that time, I was very active as a student, and even in sixth form, we were doing protests and trying to set up a Green Party. And I was also spending a lot of time in a very humid environment playing the drums with a band. I then came into the University of Malta and I chose Bachelor of Commerce. It was the first year of Bachelor of Commerce. And at that time, I joined KSU and founded the ASCS, which is hosting this meeting, together with other students. I was also starting to become very active with political theatre. After I graduated from BCom, I did the BA Honours in Economics. I graduated with both with first class, but I was extremely unhappy because I felt that this did not fulfill my desire. Somehow it felt old and everything felt like everything is GDP oriented, and it didn't fulfill my desire to make a difference. At that time, there was a new degree at UCL in environmental economics. I pursued that, came back with a distinction, and went to work at what was then the newly founded Planning Authority, where structure plans were still being drafted. There were only 30 employees. Now the Planning Authority has about 400 employees and another 400 at the Environment Resources Authority, which was splintered out of the Planning Authority. So you can see how big this sector grew from 30 employees to something like 800. And that's not all of it, because now there's the water agency, the energy and water agency, there's environmental economists in many, many sectors in government. I spent about 15 years in the civil service, not just in the Planning Authority, but also in the Environment Resources Authority, and also working some stints or some consultancy for the United Nations. A lot of our work between 2004 and when I eventually left in 2010 dealt with the European Union. We were tasked with transposing or bringing into Malta law about 200 items of environmental legislation. Naturally, that involved a lot of travel. So we were traveling something like 15 times a year, and some people travel even more than that. I was also doing a lot of broadcasting at this time. So I had a regular TV program, which was all questions from an economics perspective. I did a program called Bir Rispett Kollu, one called Viva Malta, And eventually I did a program called Tikka Fuq Kollox, which was not economics, but general knowledge. And these were long-running TV programs. So for example, Bir-Rispett Kollu had about 48 episodes. Viva Malta had about 90 episodes. And Tikka Fuq Kollox had about 400 episodes. So as you can see, if all else fails, you can always do television with your knowledge of economics, if it interests you, or journalism. After this, I felt that I needed to learn more. I seem to think that, you know, I didn't have a toolkit that was broad enough to make change. So I went to the University of Stirling and studied behavioral economics. I came back, I entered university full-time. I moved away from television and started writing screenplays in my free time. I became a mother, and now I spend a lot of my time doing outreach besides university. So it's not a linear career, but definitely a varied one, and one which I feel that economics really helped me to be able to live. So I'm done.
Thank you very, very much. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to either ask them now or you can send them to us and we will pass them on. Okay, so no questions.
Are you sure? Because sometimes they need a little bit of nudging, these people. A question that is somewhere at the back of your mind. It's an altruistic act to ask it. So even if you have a doubt, or let me ask you a question then. Why did you come to this session? What were you wondering about? Especially you, Tonino, considering that you already came to the briefing. What are you still uncertain about?
I'm actually a part of the executive of ASCS, and I thought about joining it as well for support.
That's fantastic. So there you go. He's already got 5% top up on his grades next year. I'm obviously joking for the record. Just remember it's recorded. Laura, do you have any questions you'd like to share with us?
No particular questions, because I was at the other as well.
Yeah, I recognize now. And Luke?
No, thank you. I think the presentation was like sufficient enough. Had a lot of information.
Natalia?
Okay.
You're good. So many of you will probably be seeing each other at the master's program, except those who still have to do their third year. And then we'll see you after. Very good. So shall we leave it at that? We can all go swimming.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.